Welcome to another section of our normal lecture for this semester, Christianity in Culture. And I'm still your professor, Professor Zaki Amos Aduksin. So far as we know, last week was 8th week, or rather 9th week, which it's supposed to be midtime, and so the lecture was done for 8 weeks but moved to 9 weeks, which is of this week that just passed. So the 8 week lecture, which you have all seen, is the 9th week. So don't be confused of the lecture that I posted for this Monday that passed. It's the 9th week. So today we're gonna give the lecture for the 10th week. And this lecture of last week, it's about we going and working together. And as I said that one of the most pressing questions related to culture is if people can go together and work together. Is it possible? Yes, it's possible. But culture and Christianity, culture and religion, culture matters in everything that we do. So today we shall continue the same lecture, but we will deal with the human beings in culture. We have talked about various aspects of culture, the system of culture, relationship of culture and Christianity and religion, and we talk about different kind of mindset of culture. So today we're going to focus on the human being in culture, because you know that without human being there is no culture. Or would you take animals to be your culture to study culture, or to work with culture, or to create culture for animals? No, human being create culture for people. So let's go on to our PPT as we continue to what we call the human being and now, in this week today, I want to start also with the word called "Can we all live together?" Religious and culture creates a clash of civilization. Well, let's talk about Amos chapter 3, verse 3. This is a text that will give us certain connectivity in relation to what we are talking about. Do two work together unless they have agreed to do so? So it means we can work together in anywhere, but only if we can be what? We can work together. Therefore, with a board and logic in mind, we consider comparative example of religious cultural identity in world politics. So as the reality envisage the idea of human being in culture is our target as we desire to continue our lecture today. So we will continue with this as a message in where we have to do things. Human being in culture, as we said, the first thing to deal with under this point is the cultural metrics within which human beings exist and in terms of which we interact with each other and God. So in a nutshell is that human beings interact. So the reality of it is that we will interact. It means lively people. So we are talking about interaction with God. We are interacting with ourselves. We are interacting with everyone that belongs to the society. Now, this more of the anthropological insight and its applicable or application in three models, including the crucial cultural concept. the crucial cultural concepts as model A, the model of cultural validity, model B, and then the third one, which is the concept of world view model. So number one, which we're going to focus on, is the cultural or crucial culture concept as a model. So which is number one. And the second one will be the model. So let's see that after which we talk about the relationship between the different cultural conclusions and different assumptions from which various people started. Okay, it means that there is a beginning of everything, as which suggests the idea of culture. So without the human being concept, there will not be a culture. Now, number one, the crucial cultural concept, 3A. Now, this model is all about two parts of Western cultural debates on the non-biological component of humanist, which is of the two parts, the body and the soul, or the three parts, which is the body, the soul, and the spirit. Now, let me a little bit come back to you where people talks about three parts of the body in human being, which is the body, soul, and spirit. The body is the outside one, the soul is the inner one, and the spirit is that which defines living thing that is in you. And so without the spirit, you are not living. You are not human being. So that's why we made mistake and say animals, we are all animals, but we are human beings. Now, in addition, the theologians have given attention to the relationship between the non-corporal parts of human beings and the image of God in which we are or we were created. When you look at Genesis chapter 2, verse 27, it's a text that tells us more about creation. And in verse 27, it is about God deciding to create man in the image, in this image of God. It's not just any image, but God made man in his image, which makes it different. And that is why we have the living spirit, not the animal spirit. Like the animals live, they do other things, they try to avoid other things, but they are different from ours. Okay, so Genesis will give us more about the creation. Genesis will give us issues of which we need to know that the creation of human being was made through there. Okay, now that means that human consists of more than a mere physical body. Okay, mere physical body. It just means we were created beyond and above human understanding. Okay, so don't joke with who you are, because the image that is in you is not just an ordinary image, but it's the image of God that was made in us. So more than a mere physical body, and that it is this moreness that distinguishes human from the animals, which has seldom been disputed. The moreness was tended in definitions of the definition in terms of human ability to reason. Now, people can argue with the sense that animals also argue, animals also reason, animals also play their part in being what they are. but they cannot be compared with our humanness or our nature, which is connected with the nature of the invisible God. Others have pointed more to artistic and musical creation as the supreme uh, demonstrations of human superiority over animals, and not infrequently of our closeness to God. Then you can see that we cannot be compared with animals because we are more closer to God in our sense of thinking. For that, a person knowledgeable about such things are art, music, and philosophy come came to be called culture. Now you can see the art, the music, and the philosophy all came together to prove the issue of culture, culture, culturalism. And the culture we're talking about is the culture in which we are living by it. The use of terms culture in this way was borrowed from the French. I said it in the early class. More English speakers still think the term culture is referring primarily to artistic or philosophical expertise, or we can talk about even to good manners and other accoutrement of the upper social classes. There is, however, a more technical sense in which the word culture, according to um, Coulter, has been employed in Germany from at least as early as the beginning on the 19th century. This is the use that the pioneer anthropologist E.B. Taylor borrowed into English in 1871 to design the total non-biological um, transmitted heritage of man. The usage has become customary in the behavioral science and increasingly informed popular thought. A major reason for the development of this understanding of the concept is the fact that a whole academic discipline has devoted itself largely to the study of culture. It will seems to be beyond dispute that anthropology most significant accomplishment has been the extension and classifications of the concept of culture based on our writer Kroeber in 1950 from his book. Certainly, certainly, the concept of culture is the anthropologist's most significant contribution to the missionary endeavors. It is, to my way of thinking, that an equally significant contribution to further development in theological understanding that makes sense, that people look at it as if it is what it is. The first and the most difficult um, of the areas is the influence of culture on ourselves. If, as here contended, we are all thoroughly immersed in and totally influenced, though not totally determined by our culture, its behavior behooves us to look for and to analyze the ways in which such immersion affect us. Second, we need to understand how the culture in which our hearers live and move affects them. The third area was that the culture in which they through do not he are immense. Culture, it seems by anthropologists as I read, the integrated system of learned behavior patterns which are characterized of the members of a society in which are not the result of biological inheritance. Now, this is what Kober was trying to put in the aspect in which we are dealing with. And he was trying to summarize. Kober and Kohn have summarized the culture concept in this family way. Culture consists of pattern explicit and implicit and of and for behavior acquired and transmitted by symbols constituting the distinctive achievement of human group, including their what? Embodiment in artifacts. The essence or essential core of culture consists of tradition. That's the more emphasis. That is historically drive or derived and selected ideas and especially their attached values, culture, system may or may not, on the one hand, be considered as products of actions, on the other as conditioned elements of further action. In this, it is indeed understanding of culture that we or will be employed throughout the present days. Next future culture is taken alongside. Perceiving of reality in this way has become fundamental and germinals to the behavioral science perspectives in which this book participate. This participative sees the relationship between culture and human being as in many respects similar to that between waters and fish. Humans are understood um, to be totally inextricably immersed in culture. Each human individual is born into a particular social cultural context. From that point on, persons are conditioned by the members of their society in countless large unconscious ways to accept as natural and to follow rather uncritically the cultural pattern of that society. So each one and each society are indeed in the same way, are indeed making it possible, are indeed each of us is thus shaped in the non-biological portion of our behavior, okay, of our behavior, um, that on our behavior which we have been transmitted to other things that we have to talk about. So these are the things we have been talking about. That the three part, which is the first one and the most difficult of these areas, is in the influence of culture on our sight. The second one is we need to understand how the culture in which our hearers live and move that affects us. That affects us. And the third is we need to discover how God, really very important, isn't it? How God in his interactions with human beings relates to the culture in which they, though not he, are immense. Culture is seen by another apologetics. Okay, we have read it. I read it in my uh, uh, in the book, which is found in page 46 and 47. The integrated system of learning behavior pattern, which are characterized of the members of a society and which are not the result of biological inheritance. So, bio, we are not born. It's not only by biological inheritance. You don't inherit that. So culture has to be really being part of it. Human thus may be regarded as culture shape and culture transmitting being, but we not only as shaped by the participate in a transmission of our culture, we also influence in the contribution to its reshaping. Indeed, as far as the behavioral science can tell, human originally created culture, the ability to produce, bear, and transmit. It's also what we need. So you can see it here, but not only we shaped by the participant in which transmission of how this is done. So we also influence. Individually, we influence the reality of the culture. Are we together? So this is now says the ability to produce, bear, and transmit. Culture provides the sharpest distinctions observable by naturalistic behavioral scientists between human and animals. Our culture is that in terms of which our lives is organized. Okay? In times of which our life is organized. So, like I said, it might be looked as a rules guided our lives, and then rules develop from millions of agreements between the members, um, between the members. Where am I? Sorry, between the members of our society. We remain largely unconscious of the vast majority of these rules or patterns with respect to others. Let me say that a certain of these governings, our languages, our courtesy, eating defecating, and the likes. Our elders have chosen to invest a considerable amount of energy in making us aware of rules by which we are expected to conduct these aspects of our lives. It is comparatively irrelevant whether or not we are conscious of the rules or and patterns that governs our lives. The influence of these patterns upon our lives is all pervasive. Okay? It's all pervasive. We are not as free as we may imagine ourselves to be. Kissing instructively discuss the rules or cultural agreement governing one aspect of our life, maybe borrowing from the American patterns of life. So it is comparative, like I said, and because it's comparative, they Kissing try to govern, brings up certain way of life, um, governing as aspect of American courtship uh, behavior. But it is not for us in Africa or that, but we have borrowed certain kind of things. Like, for example, let me say, the problems that a single American girl continually encounter of where to place herself on a roughly 40 inches of front seat, or an American car when a male is driving? Does she sit in the middle? Close up. Against the door? Clearly, there is a cord here, and clearly, it is a base on communication and shared understanding about girl's relationship to the driver. In long standing American courtship rituals, she is supposed to begin somewhere in the middle, and as the relationship between becomes more intimate, she acknowledges this by moving closer and closer to him. If she is angry, she moves against the door, expressing coldness and distantness. If the driver is ineligible for courtship, she sits in the neutral position. To move against the door will communicate the wrong thing. How soon the girl moves over and how far clearly express something about what kinds of a girl she is, as well as what her relationship to the driver is. So, on all that we are saying, um, culture therefore provides the model of reality that governs our perceptions. Already, we are likely to be unaware of the influence um, of our culture upon us. For the way we understand things seems to be to us to be just natural or human nature. It's just natural to eat 3 meals a day, isn't it? It's only human natural nature for teenagers to rebel against their elders. It's natural, isn't it? The answer to both questions is of course no. Cultures are there to protect and guide. And if we cannot do it, wrong, then something. So, like we have been talking about, this point one, it's very crucial to us in our discussion today, which we talk about the cultural concept model. And in so much, I gave you an illustration at the end concerning ladies and way of life then in America. Let's come back to Africa at the same time. In African context, mostly when people are in relationship, they are more far from each other. Not like today's where we're copying American culture, that people stay and test whether they're gonna be faithful in marriage, they're gonna be able to produce to some extent, some culture even they get pregnant before they get wedlock. Now, this is not really our culture. This is a culture that we borrow. When we talk about an African culture or a culture from different perspective in a different ethnic group, you can find out that there are decent culture that makes people to shy away, to go away from whatever it is to be done. Like I said, here, culture therefore provides a model of reality that governs our perceptions, although we are likely to be unaware of the influence of our culture upon us. Now, the influence upon us as a culture is that it helps modifies and sensitize our behavior. Thoroughly, we have to understand what culture is all about. And if we have to do it, then we need to understand that certain culture that we borrowed cannot adequately help us in our lifetime. Today, most people are no more looking at culture the way it is. Today, people are walking into culture as if culture is not important in our daily life. But culture is important, except it overrides. Then problems occur. We should not allow culture to override. Looking at Christianity in culture, it means Christianity should control culture at this point. Viewers, friends, students, I wish you will understand my position that as a Christian, we should make sure that Christianity overrides the religion, but where the culture is dominating, we should avoid in clear terms in order to be perfect. Thank you for having me for this first hour. Join us at the second hour as we return.
Thank you, God, for your presence.